Greetings, Craddock here. Today we're taking a look at the Innis Water Ally low grid rifting speed build. So the objective of this build is just get your greater of 90s as quick as done, 90 or 90 plus, as quick as possible. And granted, the Innis Fire and Water Ally both clear greater rifts insanely quickly, even at greater rifts that are much higher than greater rift 90, like 2 minutes. So we're going to try and get these times down to about 1 minute for a greater rift clear is the objective of this build, just to get those quick gem ups, quick keys, and most importantly, quick Ethereals in season, which is going to be helpful for gearing for other builds, right? So anyways, let's dive in. So compared to the Nephilim rifting builds, this low grid rifting version is going to swap out the gold wrap, of course, and the boon of the hoarder. So in those places, we are actually going to cube the bindings of the lesser gods. It's the same setup otherwise. So we have the Aug Hills with the bastions of will and the Squirt's necklace, but we're going to wear the crew disputes and then cube the bindings of the lesser gods. Which means it's going to put a little bit more emphasis on your Cyclone Strike. So you're going to want to, compare it to the Nephilim rifting build, use Cyclone Strike a little bit more. And it's a little bit easier because resource isn't as much of an issue. We are running the Mantra of Salvation in this version. It's a very easygoing, very standard setup where we're going to run high toughness with Desert Shroud, blinding speed for dodge, agility for dodge, and the all resistance. And then we're also running as a passive the Guardian's Path, so giving us even more dodge, just supporting the uptime of your shielding via the Molten Wildebeest Gizzard, and thereby keeping Squirt's Necklace active at almost throughout the entire rift is going to be the best approach in my opinion. Epiphany is actually going to be very important for mobility in this build. When you punch or when you cast Cyclone Strike, this will dash to your target. So we have a limited number of charges on our dashing strike, and we're going to dash to targets using the Epiphany to sort of fill the gaps with our mobility when our dash is on cooldown. Even with the NGM, you're casting it as quick as possible. You need to do this to be able to traverse the rift as fast as you know, to excel as quick as possible, right? So this is what we're going to do for mobility. Now, you do have the NGM notably, so killing the entire pack is nice. One thing about the NGM is that if you kill multiple elite pracs, it will proc more than one time, which is kind of cool, helps reset your abilities all that more readily. Now, the Messerschmitt's Reaver also is very helpful, especially when your NGM is down. Just killing density with your water allies will help reset your abilities and let you find an elite pack without losing too much time. The secondary build that you could opt for and did perform fairly well was running Serenity in this skill slot. This would allow you to swap out things on gear, like you could run emeralds, you could possibly slot other alternate offensive passives, these sort of things. However, I found Serenity Ascension very volatile because this ability does not start its cooldown until after its effects expire, meaning that even though you can get close to 100% uptime, you're never really going to reach that. And especially on rifts that were less dense, your Messerschmitt Reaver wasn't proccing enough on your other abilities to continue DPS, to continue casting Serenity often enough that you would get one shot more often with this setup and thereby die more often. It then requires the Second Life passive as your fifth passive. So it's a little bit wonky. I also did not like that this setup takes away your attention because you're paying more attention because your defense is so volatile. You're relying on the Serenity. You're paying more attention to your skill bar and not looking at where you need to go because you're wondering, am I going to survive this, right? And that to me was a negative. Another negative, in my opinion, was running generators that took your attention away from navigating through the rift. This includes anything that gives you extra damage and has like a status bar like, hey, I'm active. This includes Assimilation, Blazing Fists, and even like skills like Foresight, which also give additive damage, right? So any of those, just ignore those completely. We're moving so quickly in these clears that we just want to choose generators that can proc our focus and restraint quite readily. Now, as far as my preferred generator, I actually preferred Deadly Reach Scattered Blows. This is because Deadly Reach, along with the Alacrity passives, allows you to reduce your first initial hit for your generator down to the lowest FPA possible for a generator chosen. Plus, Deadly Reach has kind of a longer range than some of the other skills. The runes are very good. Scattered Blows, for example, every third hit randomly damages enemies within 25 yards. This third hit proc will proc your restraint side of the Bastions of Will bonus. So it helps you keep up this side of the multiplier all that much more easily. Another really good rune that worked fairly well was actually running the Deadly Reach Piercing Trident. And a minor annoyance is that this rune increases the chance to knock up enemies into the air. It's actually kind of comical. But what we're really after here is that the second and third hits gain increased area of effect. And that's both distance out from the character and cone area of attack, right? So it's really good at hitting enemies in front of you, whereas the Scattered Blows will hit enemies in front of you and behind you. So that's why I kind of preferred Scattered Blows. However, the benefit of Trident is that Trident will have increased radius even on the second hit, not just the third hit, right? So there's some advantage there to running this rune instead. And also I found Crippling Wave, even though it's slightly slower, it still has a pretty quick starter FBA for the first hit. And the Concussion rune, enemies hit by Crippling Wave deal 20% less damage, fitting in with this theme of making sure that enemies damage us less to preserve our Squirt's Necklace via the shielding. It just jives very well in that sense. It's also a great option for hardcore if you wanted to swap in a Second Life passive as well. So notably, the Enforcer gem is going to allow us to run the gain access to all skills on our Enchantress. We are running the Enchantress for the extra cooldown, attack speed, etc. Though the elemental damage is welcome, and the toughness from Powered Shield, of course, all good and dandy. You can opt for Spoils of Zakara or Homing Pads in this slot. I prefer the Broken Crown just for extra gems, but you could run Leorics here if you want. And then Oculus Ring, it doesn't proc all that often with this build because the pets are, with the follower, it just doesn't work all that well. Running Canes is obviously going to be nice for the extra experience, and then Ice Climbers to make sure your follower doesn't get frozen. Affixes are going to be very similar. We're going to gear Cooldown, Shoulder Piece Helm, Paragon on the Enchantress. We're running cooldown on Gloves. We are going to skip it on the Rings. We're going to save that for Dexterity, or at higher Paragon you can run average damage in that slot as well. And then on the weapon, of course, both weapons come with cooldown, which is very nice. Gives you a nice base. And then attack speed on the weapon, both rings, and then you'll skip it on the glove. Gives you a nice base of attack speed, making sure you can cast your Cyclone Strike rather readily. Remember, we do have the Echoing Fury in this build. This will increase our attack speed and our mobility to help us click those shrines, or click the pylons, click the doors, that sort of thing. You don't need as much movement speed as compared to the Nephilim Rifting build, because again, we are not picking up items as we are killing things, so it's quite nice that we can drop some of that movement speed and still clear very efficiently. Notably, we have the Mystic Ally damage additive on the chest piece. You also have Mystic Ally damage from you get the passive from the fire rune, so you get 40% there. Quite nice. And then I think you also get the base mantra for Mantra of Conviction. That also adds in a little bit of additive there as well. We are running cold because the water allies are cold. And yeah, pretty much gearing all resistance wherever possible because we're not running anything like Beacon of Ytar, so all resistance is going to make sure that you're as tough as possible. And what is really important affix wise is the pickup radius with this build. You can see in the video I only have 14, and I'm having to run around sometimes to pick up the orbs, which really detracts from my clear speed. So anywhere you can put pickup radius on your gear is highly important to slot that affix. It is quite a lot of fun this season. I hope you've enjoyed playing it. It was a blast to try and optimize and clear risks as quick as possible. Hope you're able to use this build to advantage, and yeah, see you in the risks.